If you're trying to become the better version of yourself while trying to learn from the experiences of other successful people, or you're trying to unleash your inner greatness, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to Reconnecting the Dot, brought to you by Abdurrahman. Hello? Hello?
All right.
Finally.
Finally. So,
Persistent.
yes, persistent actually. So, welcome to the first episode of Reconnecting the Dot. And help me to welcome to the show Mr. Michael Elliott. I like to call him Mr. Michael. So, how you doing today, Mr. Michael?
I'm blessed. I'm well. It's an honor and a privilege to join you, and I extend my congratulations to you
Thank you so much.
for your podcast. I'm sure that it's going to be a source of greatness and
Right.
life to those who are willing to partake. So thank you for having me here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, for those of us who probably did not listen to the intro of the podcast, when it was out, and of course, I know some people definitely will, like new people probably want to listen to the podcast. So let me just give a snapshot of who Mr. Elliott is. So Mr. Elliott is actually a youth counselor and a career navigator with industries, and is been working with the youth for. And today, um, we're going to be talking about talking about purpose as it relates to how you can help a youth or a young person to land, a successful employment. But before then, Mr. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about yourself so our listeners can get to know about you a little bit?
I consider myself to be a servant first and foremost.
Okay.
I've invested the very part of the last 10 years of my life into human resources and personal development of others. I think that's the calling that I have on my life, to help my next brother to empower them with information and weaponize them with the right attitude, because life, as you know, life is very, very difficult to
That's
navigate.
right. That's right.
So
Yeah.
I've been thankful in my life that I have really strong people around me that is actually shared wisdom with me. So it's incumbent on me to just share that with everybody else. So I'm here to serve, and that's the way I perceive everything every day, to serve everybody else that God has put in my life.
Wow. All right. That's interesting. So Mr. Ellis, as you know, that we're actually going to be talking about the relevance of purpose, and as it relates to how a young person or a youth, can actually help to be successful in terms of finding employment. So can you define what the term purpose is, and you know we would like listeners out there to also understand what exactly purpose is, and what are the ways to actually leverage on purpose to accomplish whatever goal or desire one or individual wants to accomplish.
Well, that's a very good question. When you think in terms of purpose, you have to think in terms of life. Um, the question of purpose is a question of life. Um, most people that you connect with, they will tell you who they are, and
Mm,
most people are acquainted with the fact of what they do for a living. The
right.
question that everybody struggles with is why?
Mm,
Why are they here? Why are they,
right.
why am I in this place on earth? Why? And that's the ultimate question. So uh, and the concept of purpose comes out of needing something. Okay,
Right.
It's a God question. One of the things that I try to share with the young adults that I deal with anytime we're talking about purpose, I always tell them this: I can tell you your purpose. Your mom
Hmm.
and your dad cannot tell you your purpose in life because they did not create you. They were the conduit that God used to bring you here.
Right.
So, for you to really know your purpose in life, you have to go back to the person that created you. You know,
Hmm.
I'm a study of the Bible, and God said something very key to Jeremiah. He said, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before
Right.
you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet." That's the key word. The key word appointed means to ordain someone. So it's God that created Jeremiah, and He created Jeremiah for a purpose. And the purpose was to become a prophet. And that applies to every single one of us. God has prepackaged us with a talent and gifts. And the world needs those gifts and talent. Now, I can tell you
Right.
what your gifts are. I can tell you what your talents are, Mr. Abdul. Only God can reveal them
Right.
to you. So
I
the
mean,
whole concept of purpose dates has to go back to God. And you have to ask God and said, okay, why did you create me? What did you create me for? What are the talents and the gifts that you embedded inside of me? And I ask God to create a platform for you where you can actually manifest those gifts and talents. You understand what I'm saying?
right. I understand. So, in essence, if a young man, a young adult who perhaps is fresh and pretty much just want to navigate a pathway to success and wants to actualize something. All right, so what are those key things that young man or anyone at all can actually take into consideration as a form of an impotence to actualize that set goal. Because for me, for instance, I want to do something sometimes, and I tell myself, okay, you know what? This is what I want to do. But again, I come up with goals, right? I come up with goals that actually aligns to whatever dream I have. So I wanted to actually just share like a kind of a journey or a kind of an experience with us and the listeners out there, so they can actually understand, like the different kind of steps they need to take to, identify that set purpose. Because based on what you've said, every human being has been gifted by default a purpose.
Yeah.
All right. So, I would like you to actually take us on a journey to share as to how we can actually navigate and take, that purpose as a sense of impotence to actually make it happen.
Well, that's a very good question. And the best way I can answer that question is to be transparent to your audience.
Right.
I spent I spent about 20 years of my life in system development in the IT field, and I've worked with all the Fortune 500 companies here in Houston, Texas, and the rest of America. But here's the thing about
Mm.
that period in my life. It was what I designed. It was the career. It was the life that I wanted to live. And I put
Mm.
a set of goals around it, and I was able to achieve those goals. Okay,
Right.
I've got my degrees from the university back in England, and I used my degrees to actually get jobs in this country. So I had a model for my
Right.
career, and I
Your career.
and I went after those. I went after my goals, and I was able to achieve my goals. But in light of the
Right.
conversation that we're having today as purpose, that is what I did for those years of 20 years was not the purpose why God created me. Okay?
Mm.
Because if you want to know anything about your purpose, you have to understand who God is. God is about people.
Right.
Everything that I did in those 20 years was not about any person. It was all about me.
Mm.
It was when I was awakened and unveiled and I started talking to God. I said, God, why did you create me? What is my purpose in life? That's when
Mm.
things started to change in my life. And God said, I did not create you to be a system developer. That's your career that you have chosen. Okay. I
Mm.
created you to invest the gift and talent that you have in the lives of others, to empower people with knowledge and wisdom, to guide people
Right.
in the right path. And for the last 10 years of my life, that's what I've been doing. So, what am I trying
Mm.
to tell you? That, okay, it's especially in the community that you and I are both Nigerians, in the Nigerian community, our parents,
Right.
they know how to enforce their ideas of what they want their children to become. And they'll
That's
tell
right.
their children at a very young age, I want you to become a doctor. I want you to become a lawyer. Well, guess what?
Right.
That might not be the reason why God created them. Okay?
Mm.
That might not be the reason. And this is something, it's a shift, it's a paradigm shift that we have to take to allow God
Right.
to lead our children. Because here's the thing that we do as Nigerian parents, we take ownership of our children. God did not call us to take ownership. We're meant to be stewards of our children.
Of our
So
children.
it's not
Right.
ownership, it's stewardship. Stewardship means that you guide them, you look at the talents and the gift that God has embedded in them. And when you see those gifts and talents being manifested, you do everything in your power to amplify those gifts. You put them in the right environment and let God have his
Right.
way in their lives. But we take the position of enforcing our own ideas upon our children. For example, if I had a dream at a very young
Right.
age and I couldn't fulfill that dream, I want to enforce my child to go after those dreams. That might not be the reason why God created them. That might not be the purpose, you know?
That's right.
So
That's right.
everybody
That's right.
carries something inside them that the entire world needs. And only God knows the reason why he created you. So it's a question of God, it's a question of life. And I, I, I
Mm.
would I would not be doing my job on this podcast if I tell you that I can tell another man its purpose in life. What I can tell another man is that, okay, I can I can let you know the God that created you. I can introduce you to the God that
Mm.
created you and let God tell you the reason why he created you.
Wow. That's very powerful. That's really powerful there. I remember when I was trying to start this podcast, right? So I kept on procrastinating and all that. But I had to sit down and say, okay, look, you know what? What are you passionate about? I was asking myself questions. I asked myself a question about what my passions are, why this podcast, why do I want to do this podcast? And then boom, like I decided, well, you know what? I have a purpose in me. And I know that the purpose in me, it's aligned to my vision and my passion. So all of these three key things, I was able to put them together. And I
Mhm.
said, okay, look, what are my passion? My passion is to always taking an active, role in the learning of others and in my own learning. I believe that when I take an active role in the learning of others, I learn something directly or indirectly. No matter how much you know, or no matter how much you understand, there's always one or two things we learn every day. We stop learning until we don't exist anymore.
Mm.
So, and that was what gave birth to this podcast. And I thought, well, you know what? Since this is my passion of wanting to always let people learn about different things, okay, good. It as well leads to my vision. And my vision is to actually help those people
Mhm.
unleash their inner greatness. Now, this is where I'm coming to, Mr. Elliott. So, what would you advise that young man out there, that young adult was freshly getting out of high school or was perhaps struggling, literally struggling in between purpose and success? There's a two different thing, right? So, what would you advise, and what steps would you advise, those young men out there or young person listening to this podcast to actually, to um, actualize their set purpose and that successful, employment or whatever anything they desire to do with their lives.
Well, You have to understand one thing, that there's a difference between employment and deployment.
Right.
Okay.
Hmm.
When I was narrating a story about my earlier life in the workforce in system development, I went after
Right.
success. Okay, that's what I
Hmm.
did. It was my idea. It was my career. I was the one that elected the university that I went to. If you listen to the terms that I'm using, it was I, right? It was my
I.
goals that I set. Don't get me wrong. Out of the mercy of God, I was able to attain, those goals, and I was financially compensated. But it was my idea. It was my life. Okay, so that's what success. That's the definition of success, right? If you have some goals and you put, you have the resources around those goals and you work at it, you'll be able to achieve it. But doesn't mean that, okay, that's the purpose of God for your life. Okay, and I think that's the disconnect that most people don't understand. But here's the thing: when you find your purpose in life and God reveals your purpose to you, success is not going to be an issue. Because when you
Hmm.
are in the will of God and you are doing what God created you for, success is already embedded in that purpose. Because
Hmm. Wow.
when God created Adam, he created Adam. He said, I've given you everything that you need to live a godly life. Everything I've already embedded in you. I need you to manage my real estate. So God created Adam for a
Right.
purpose. And the success that comes with it is already embedded in that purpose. So we
Right.
don't run what we need to teach our children, like I've been talking about, and young adults, is that I'll support you in whatever ideas that you come up with. That, okay, these are the things that you want to do. Okay, I'll support you. But one question I'm going to ask you is this: did somebody push you in that direction, or did it come from inside of you? Because you just gave a narrative right now. You said when you wanted to create this podcast, you were thinking about it.
Hmm.
You wanted to know why. You did not have any collaborations with nobody. It was coming from in within you. You were thinking about it. So
That's right.
everything started in your mind before it was manifested in life.
Interesting. That's
So
right.
that's where everything
That's right.
everything starts, in the mind of God. Listen, the person that created Facebook, Facebook was created in 2004. Mark Zuckerberg. It would tell you that
Yeah.
everything started in his mind first and foremost before it was manifested in life. So every single one of us, we are an original thought in the mind of God
Hmm.
before we were created and manifested in life. So for me to know who I am and why God created me, only God can reveal that to me. And embedded in that purpose is the success that comes with it. And you can
Right.
never fail.
Right. Right.
You can never fail when you find your purpose in life and God reveals it to you. Let me put it this to you this way. You do know the richest place ever in the world?
Honestly, I don't
Okay,
know.
let me explain the richest place ever in the world. The richest place in the world is not Wall Street. That's what the secular humanists want you to believe. The richest place in the world is the graveyard. Do you know
Wow.
why? Because there's so many people that died in the graveyard with ideas and they never fulfilled their purpose in life.
Hmm.
So the cemetery, the graveyard is so rich with authentic ideas that people never fulfilled and they died with it. So we that are
Interesting.
enjoying life, we have to seek the guidance and the face of God. And it's never too late. I don't care how old you are. It's never too late for you to ask the creator of your life and say, why did you create me? I don't want to die without knowing my purpose. There's a
Right.
reason why you
Right.
created me. So guide me, reveal it to me, unveil my eyes so I know my purpose in life. And success comes with it.
Interesting. Interesting. This is really really powerful, and I must say that I I have actually noted some learning point from what you just said. And one of the things you said, you mentioned, when you find your purpose in life, success is already embedded in that purpose. So it means do not worry, do not despair. Once you find your purpose in life, success comes just like that, easily.
Absolutely.
And I think this really gives me a sense of confidence that um, everyone, everyone at all, whether you're young, you're old, you're a young adult, regardless of whatever or who you are, purpose is that key drive that helps to navigate your fulfillment. I will not use the word success. I am going to use fulfillment. Mr. Manga, you remember some time back when we worked with some youth members who were going through some things in their lives and all that. I really remember vividly about this young guy who for some he struggles in between a whole lot of things,
Mm.
and then we sit him down every now and then, try to do some mentoring for him and all of that. I don't know. Can you share that story a little bit? Just maybe people can actually just maybe learn from that as well, which perhaps is also aligning to the question in mind there, which is purpose. Purpose is a drive. You
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, I mean, I can. I think if I'm correct, because you and I work with so many young adults. Um,
Yes.
but if I'm correct in knowing the person that you're talking to, but here's the thing about um, purpose, that another element of purpose when it relates to
Right.
young adults. You have to understand one thing about God. God doesn't waste his talent or gifts at all. He doesn't waste it.
Mm,
What does that mean? God wants you to be mature enough, and that's the key element, maturity. God wants you to be mature enough to be able to handle the purpose and the
mm,
reason why He created you. Because
right.
if you're not mature enough, you are going to waste your talent. And you're going to use your talent because you're looking for validation from man instead of looking for validation from God. So there's an
I'm
element of
glad.
yeah, there's an element of maturity that comes with it. Now, the young adults that
Right.
you've been working with, right? I understand where they
Mm,
are, because you have to understand everybody's in a different place in their lives. Okay.
true.
So I understand where they are, that they're not mature enough to handle what God created them for. So God will wait you out. God will wait on you for you to get to that place of maturity. And I'm speaking from experience. It took me a
Mm,
long time for me to finally understand that God has given me a voice to speak and to empower people and
right.
weaponize people with information and guidance and wisdom. It was at that time that I realized that, hey, all the 20 years that I spent in Fortune 500 companies building computer systems, that was about me. That was not about God. Yeah, His mercy was
Mm,
upon my life. But now that I'm dealing with young adults from
right.
impoverished background, I can speak life into them. I can empower them with purpose. I can empower them with information. I can guide them in the right paths by letting them know that, okay, listen, for you to be able to achieve your purpose in life, you have to have a relationship with God, because God is the one that's going to reveal it to you. And don't worry about his success, because the success is going to come. It's just a byproduct of the purpose. But the question of life is the reason why you are here. So there's an element of maturity that comes with it.
Right.
You know, there's an element
Right.
of being a mighty man of valor or a mighty woman of valor, that God sees that, okay, you're mature enough that it can entrust you, it can unveil in you and manifest out of you the reason and the purpose why He created you.
Mm, right. Right. Interesting. Thank you so much, Mr. Michael. I really do appreciate your time and attention, and thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. For sure, I'm definitely going to bring you back on the show because we're going to have a whole lot more episodes to delve into, because Poppers it delves into a whole lot of things, and it triggers and a lot of other discussion as well. So for those of us who are listening to this podcast and who, of course, perhaps will be listening to it in the future, please follow me on Instagram on Reconnecting the Dot podcast and leave us your comments and feedbacks, and most importantly, subscribe to our podcast. And see you next week
Yep.
on the next episode of Reconnecting the Dot podcast. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Mr. Michael, once again.
Thank
And
you. Thank you for having me. It's been fun. I look forward
yeah,
to I look forward to many more opportunities to actually come on your podcast and
all right.
to share with you and your audience how we should be living this life that God has blessed us to live. So I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.